Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Turning Your Attention to VISTA Member Retention. Thank you so much for joining us today to discuss how you can retain your members throughout their year of service, what you can do to motivate and inspire them, and how you can keep them engaged in their service and in the community. We'll provide you information, answer questions that you have, and point you to many resources that you can use to bolster your retention efforts. My name is Eric Powell, and I'm an AmeriCorps VISTA training specialist with the Corporation for National and Community Service. I'm a proud VISTA alum and VISTA Leader alum, and I'm very, very happy to be with you today to talk to you about retention. I'll be hosting and presenting today's webinar, as well as facilitating some chat activities and the live Q&A at the end of the session. Also joining us today from our partners at LSI are Mike and Steve, who will be managing the Zoom technology. You will also see them in the chat panel posting some links and questions, as well as assisting with various aspects of today's webinar. Let's look at the goals for today. We hope that by the end of the session, you will be able to understand basic elements of member retention, and many of you seem like you already understand that based on the opening question we had. We also want you to develop ways that you can inspire and motivate your members. Begin planning for retention and asking your members for feedback about what works and what doesn't work, and know where you can get additional resources and support. And today's agenda includes what is retention in terms of its definition, its importance, and where your work on retention begins. Examples of retention activities that you can use and adapt to your VISTA project and members. Resources on steps that you can take and things you can do to retain your members. We'll then provide some next steps and an evaluation. We'll then give you information about our next webinar and answer some of your questions. I am thrilled to have with us today two fabulous guest speakers currently involved in VISTA projects to really help us talk about retention. Let me first introduce Laura Martin of the McLean Institute for Public Service and Community Engagement at the University of Mississippi.
Good afternoon, Eric, and thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here today. I serve as the Associate Director of the McLean Institute for Public Service and Community Engagement at the University of Mississippi. One of our key initiatives is the North Mississippi VISTA Project, which fights poverty through education in Mississippi. We have 25 year-long positions serving a 28-county region. Our primary focus area is education, but we also have members working on the economic opportunity and healthy futures focus areas. I'm also a proud AmeriCorps alum. I served in Texas from 2006 to 2007 with Keep Austin Housed.
Another proud VISTA alum. Thank you, Laura. We're so glad that you're with us today to share your ideas and your suggestions on how you and your VISTA project retain VISTA members. I'll next introduce Jamie Rich of FIRST, for Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jamie Rich. I'm the VISTA specialist at FIRST. I've been with FIRST for over 7 years, 5 of those years in the development department, and I've been with our VISTA project for 2 years. I also spend about 20% of my time working with our equity, diversity, and inclusion team. Our program has over 30 VISTA members at over 20 sites across the country.
Thank you, Jamie, as well, for joining us, and we're really excited to hear about your experience and recommendations based on your VISTA project and what you've learned works and doesn't work with retention. And I know that personally and professionally, I'm very grateful for both of you joining us today, and I imagine that you at home will be very, very much appreciative as well once we hear and see what they have for us today. I really love this quote by Mark Twain. "The secret to getting ahead is getting started." Of course, in order for you to get ahead and be proactive in your efforts to cultivate strong professional relationships with your VISTA members and leaders and create a meaningful and joyful environment for your team, you have to get started.
So let's get started by defining what retention is. First of all, it's critical to conceptualize of retention not as an activity in and of itself, but as an output resulting from activities and actions that you do. Retention is an ongoing process that demands your active attention because you as supervisors have an incredibly influential role. Remember that your actions and words really do make or break a VISTA member's service, so you want to continually direct your attention to retention efforts. Retention is active, not passive. Now, I'm okay if a few of you disagree with me, because sometimes you can create a relationship with your members such that members are naturally and automatically motivated and self-energizing. However, it's still a best practice to actively cultivate that sense of drive and that burning passion for service. Retention is working regularly to inspire individuals, find new and innovative ways for them to be engaged and involved, and integrate them into the culture of the VISTA project and your organization. Although VISTA members are not official staff members, they are people, humans, first and foremost, and they are a significant resource that you want to respect and acknowledge.
Let's be really, really honest. It's not always easy to retain your members. There are some things within your control and others that you have absolutely no control over. So let's take a look at some common challenges that supervisors have with their VISTA members, how they connect to retention, and what can be done about them. You've probably already seen this image representing a typical experience for a VISTA member as they make their way through the year of service. We won't go over it in detail, but I want to quickly mention that this is adapted from work done by Ken Blanchard on what he called situational leadership. In a brief summary, we typically start a new job or endeavor feeling really enthusiastic and really excited, even if we have no clue what we'll be doing, which was me when I was a VISTA. Then, we may have second thoughts about whether we made the right decision. We question things, we wonder things, but we stick with it. We learn and try different things. Maybe we even start feeling pretty good about what we're doing. And then, all of a sudden, challenges, problems, or obstacles make us see the downside of the situation, and we really become disillusioned about 3 months into service. The good news is that usually we don't stay there for very long as we figure out the challenge, make more progress, and start becoming more of a contributor halfway through the year of service. We then start to pick up steam, and we become a peak performer as we get closer to the end of our service, striving to end on a positive note and really be successful for ourselves and the entire VISTA project. So understanding that this is a typical life cycle and does not fit every single VISTA member, use the chat panel now to type where in this life cycle you feel that it is most important for you to be supportive in working on retention strategies and activities. Remember, not every VISTA member follows this specific order or time frame, but you really want to think about how the VISTA members that you have and where your attention to retention can have a major impact. So I see a lot of responses coming in. Some say the entire term of service. Some say 3 to 6 months. Someone earlier that said in the first month or two. Second thoughts, disillusioned learner. That's a great idea. Always from the beginning. A lot of people commenting about from the beginning or all the time, at the very beginning. So yeah, a lot of you are very similar, which I think makes sense. And I will say from our perspective, we feel like many of you are correct and that the best answer is that in this life cycle, you really want to be focusing on retention at all times. And we'll get into that in a minute. Because the more you focus on engaging with your VISTA member and helping them feel valued and more important, the more likely they are to come to you when they have problems during their 3-month slump, the more likely they are to feel that they have an avenue of support when they are disillusioned, as you mentioned, and the more likely they are to know that they are not alone and that you and others actually care about their success in service and their overall well-being.
On the screen are some common challenges people have with retaining their VISTA members. While this is not an exhaustive list, you can see that these are all pointed to a challenge or potentially negative situation experienced by the VISTA member. The point here is that retention is not automatic. It's not guaranteed, and truthfully is not always something you can control. In some cases, you recruit and select a VISTA member and you don't have to do much to sustain them in their work, and you get to enjoy having an excellent VISTA member who loves what they do. However, in some cases, in most cases, retention involves more TLC or tender loving care. on the part of the VISTA supervisor, as well as on all those who interact with the VISTA member. How do we overcome current retention challenges and work to mitigate future problems to the extent possible? We need to look at where retention begins. And it begins during the recruitment phase, when the applicant first submits their application to your VISTA project. You want to retain your applicants and keep them interested, because that experience can have a lasting impact on their retention as a member. Keep in mind, your project may not be the only project that that member has applied for. Stewarding them and nurturing that relationship early is key for retention down the road. VISTA projects sometimes inadvertently neglect acting to retain applicants by not regularly communicating with them prior to starting service, by forgetting to give them specific details about what day, time, and location to report on that first day of service, by not providing them contact information for their supervisor in advance, by not supporting the applicant to think about what could ease an applicant's nervousness or uncertainty. Retention continues all the way through the last day of a member's service. The more attention you put to retention will help your applicants to be excited for service and make it easier to retain them as members.
So we have a really quick poll question for you, and we want you to think about, when do your VISTA members typically early terminate, if you have VISTA members that early terminate at all? We're continuing into thinking about member serving and how you want to retain members, and we'll give you about 30 seconds to submit your response. And please select all that apply, as you may have multiple options that fit your VISTA project. And we kept the timeframes pretty general, so you can select between 1 and 3 months, between 4 and 6 months, 7 to 9 months, 10 to 12 months. Maybe you're unsure because you have a different role in the VISTA project and you're not quite sure, or maybe your project is really successful and you don't have any early terminations. Obviously, you can really only answer this question if you currently have VISTA members or if you've had them in the past. And please understand that we do not like to see members early terminate, but we do know that it does sometimes happen for various reasons, whether it be medical reason, they're unhappy with their assignment, maybe they're displeased with their supervisor, but it does happen. So we just have a quick poll, and I think most people have responded by now, so we'll go ahead and close the poll and take a brief look at the results. So it looks like about 33% of people said 1 to 3 months is when their VISTAs typically early terminate. Then the next largest chunk is 21% of you said 4 to 6 months. 20% are unsure. 19% said no early terminations. Way to go, that's awesome. Keep it up, and hopefully you'll provide some ideas in the chat as to why your project is successful and doesn't have any early terminations. And then lastly, 16% said 7 to 9 months, and 7% said 10 to 12 months. So you're probably wondering, why did we ask this question in relation to retention? Well, think about the fact that we're talking about specifically retaining members. If you know when your VISTA members typically early terminate, on average, it can give you an idea of when you may really want to work out how to retain your members. Obviously, as we talked about earlier, retention throughout the entire year is critical. But if there are specific time frames that you notice members are having a difficult time, that can help you think a few months prior to that how you can bolster your retention efforts, because sometimes there are ongoing factors that contribute to their decision whether they want to stay or want to leave.
This next slide is really recognizing and honoring all of the work that you guys do as supervisors. And as we move through some of our examples, we really want to encourage y'all to bake retention into every single phase of your management of the VISTA project. It's likely that supervisors and VISTA project staff do not really spend enough time thinking about the details of retention and the ramifications of not devoting time to it. For instance, you already focused energy on planning, spend time on recruiting, invest time in creating opportunity listings, dedicate time to writing the VAD, devote time to marketing and outreach, allocate time to screening and interviewing, use time in selecting and preparing applicants, and put in time to find the right individuals. And there is still more. We know that this work is challenging and it can seem like a constant uphill climb to inspire and retain your members. Work with your members and they will work for you. And if there are any parents out there who have been watching Frozen 2 with their children, I always like to think of doing the next right thing You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step.
That is so true. And we want to take that information and what we're talking about and really give you a few specific examples of things that can focus your attention on VISTA member retention. Remember, all examples we mentioned may not work for your VISTA project, but many of you are creative and have already shared great ideas as to how you can be innovative in thinking about how you can adapt and implement ideas based on your specific situation with your VISTA project and your VISTA members and leaders. So as we talked about earlier, the focus of this webinar is specifically the retention of VISTA members. However, as Laura and Jamie mentioned earlier, we do want to very quickly start off with the retention of applicants because it's integral that you and whoever is on your recruitment team also consider how you can keep your applicants interested and excited to serve in general and with your VISTA project. Because if you think about it, retaining your applicants makes you more likely that you'll retain them as members as well. So let's look at the first one. Contact them on a weekly basis, letting the applicant know that you did not forget about them and you want to prepare them. One example, each week, highlight something new about the VISTA project, whether it be the community, poverty statistics, the VISTA assignment description, maybe highlights about the organizational culture, or fun and interesting things to do in the area. During 1 week, you may want to connect with them, you may want to connect them with a currently serving VISTA member or a recent VISTA alumni who can really tell their personal story, either on video or on phone, of why they served and really inquire about what's next and inspire the applicant. After the interview and prior to their first day of service, consider scheduling at least one phone or video call to thank them for applying. Those 2 words, thank you, go a long way. And talk about why you're excited for them specifically to serve and to see what questions they may have about your VISTA project. Also, try to find ways to be energetic and really let them know that you're excited, you're thrilled, and why you want them as part of your VISTA program. And don't forget, as an applicant, send them the specific details that they need for success. Things like the date, time, and location where they need to report, any important instructions for parking or access to the building, and contact information for their supervisor or someone who can respond if needed. It sounds simple and easy, but you'd be surprised how little things like that can really make a difference if retaining applicants. Now, once your applicant becomes a member on their first day of service, what can you do to strengthen their passion, motivation, and energy as a member? As we provide you a few examples, again, think about how you can make many of your actions and activities interactive, participatory, engaging, and involving.
Let's move to a second example. Communicate regularly and effectively with your members. You may have heard this before, but start off with a regular, rarely missed weekly meeting. Getting on a regular schedule helps both of you learn how you communicate and can show the VISTA member that you have time and are making time for them, especially because significant numbers of VISTA members complain about their supervisor not understanding what it's like to be a VISTA, not being available, and not really caring about them. And we know this is not the case. Try not to miss too many meetings because the more that you cancel them, the more it can give the VISTA member the impression that the meeting time is not valued or is just an afterthought. Be available and be present. Sure, you're not available 24/7 and you have a job to do, or many, many hats, as I know many of us wear. But if you have specific days or times that you are more available, let the VISTA member know. Work really hard to promptly return emails and phone calls. Remember, no matter the age of the VISTA member, people generally do expect relatively timely responses. It can be a delicate balance because you don't want the VISTA member to feel like you are hovering over them or micromanaging by checking in all the time. But as you get to know your VISTA members, you will ask and learn from them about what works best. Understand each other's communication by asking them how they like to receive feedback. Don't assume, but ask. Some people like you to be direct and just tell them what's on your mind. Some people like a longer conversation with a softer approach to ease into the topic. Others like you to put the feedback, positive or negative, in a framework that allows them to see how they can tangibly build off of that feedback. If you're not careful, people can take your well-intentioned feedback harshly, so ask how they want to receive it and remind them that by offering criticism, you are investing in their growth and development. and give them examples of positive feedback and constructive feedback to help structure their thinking about how they wish to receive this information. In a similar way, ask about how the VISTA member typically communicates, and then ask them how they want to receive communication from you. And you can share the same about yourself. Some people prefer texting or phone calls or emails. Some people want short and concise responses. Given the many forms of communication and how many we are utilizing now during COVID-19, it is essential that you both understand each other so that communication, it does not become something that hurts your relationship or your retention efforts, because the VISTA member feels like your feedback or lack thereof is disrespectful, hurtful, or confusing, or making them feel so discouraged that they consider leaving. VISTA members want to feel connected and included, so be sure to let them know about organizational happenings, important new developments, and activities that can enable them to meet new staff and feel more engaged. If there are no activities in the near future, consider creating simple and fun things to do with VISTA project staff, volunteers, and community members. These could be in-person events like nature walks and food, or they could be virtual events such as trivia. To do this, utilize initiative and innovation. Change things up and encourage the VISTA member to set the agenda for one-on-one meetings with the supervisor. This gives the member some responsibility and also helps you really see what is on the member's mind and what questions they have. If you'd like to get them more involved, you can even ask them to facilitate the meeting and practice their public speaking while you give them feedback. Urge creativity and innovation to spark the VISTA's passion within the role and the VAD. Of course, you want the VAD activities to be accomplished, but you also want the VISTA to own the VAD and feel a part of it. Have the VISTA make notes about how they can be creative with the VAD and in their VISTA position as they seek to build capacity and sustainability. Continuing with the communication example, now we will move to communicating effectively inside and outside of the organization. In your organizational staff meetings, fully introduce the VISTA member and explain what VISTA is. Let the VISTA member talk about what they are doing as well. When sending out updates to your staff, give credit where credit is due. If the VISTA member did the entire project, or at least had a significant role in doing so, make it known. VISTA members are humble by nature and truly appreciate being recognized for their work. Talk about VISTA within the organization. When you are on your break in meetings and as appropriate, tell staff about your VISTA members and encourage them to get to know the VISTAs. When in the office, make sure that the VISTA members' workspace, such as their office, cubicle, and desk, have the VISTA logo prominently displayed on the outside of it, if your organization allows that. Remind your VISTA members to put the VISTA logo and title of AmeriCorps VISTA member in their email signature and on business cards if they have them. While you recognize the work that they do, they should also recognize themselves proudly and their affiliation with AmeriCorps VISTA. Do you or does someone in your organization put together press releases or social media posts? Those are great opportunities to recognize the VISTA members' work. You never know who else out there has heard of VISTA and may be even more interested to read your information. One great way to do this is by specifically spotlighting the role of the VISTA member within your VISTA project and at your organization. In all of your staff meetings, dedicate part of the meeting to update the staff on the VISTA members' tasks, their involvement in different projects, and their importance to the larger mission and success of the VISTA project. Highlight VISTA-related events and happenings on shared calendars. Be proud to have a VISTA member because it should be a huge benefit to your organization, and let others know about the great work that is going on.
I have another great example. Take time to get to know your members and their interests. You may think you know them, but do you know why they joined VISTA and why your specific project? Do you know their favorite fun activity? What makes them nervous? Or what they feel they need to succeed? Instead of yes or no questions, ask them open-ended questions to prompt a discussion and enable them to tell their story. As you learn about them, incorporate their interests as appropriate into their service during conversations and activities. If a VISTA member is interested in practicing public speaking, give them a chance to lead a meeting. If a VISTA member wants or needs experience in grant writing, connect them with someone at your organization or in the community who has done just that. Don't just supervise, but also coach them to success. Be kind and supportive while being firm around regulations and expectations. Offer positive and constructive feedback and suggestions to help them improve personally and professionally. Find out why they applied to be a VISTA member and why they chose your VISTA project. Listen to what they are saying, because that'll give you the insight into their interests and their passions, which you can use later. Hone in on what motivated them to serve and what really makes them who they are. You want to get to know them, but make the relationship mutual. It's a two-way street. As the VISTA member wants to feel involved and valued, they also want to know that you care about them and respect their service. Tell them about yourself. Why are you with your organization? What are your interests? Just like you would do with a new staff member or a new friend, you want to invest in the relationship with your VISTA members. Offer professional development activities, whether coordinated by you or someone else. Support the VISTA members in completing their VAD and preparing for life after VISTA. What will be their VISTA legacy? Whether paid or free trainings and professional development, work with them to identify and take advantage of all the possibilities before them. It's important for the VISTA to understand their role and their VAD. And it's also essential for you to help the VISTA understand how their activities and 1 year of service contribute to a larger mission and impact. 1 year, 1 member, it makes a huge difference. Remember that your VISTA member may sooner or later become a board member, a donor, a lifelong champion of your work. You may even be able to turn your VISTA member into a staff member after they complete their service. At first, we have 4 active staff who once served with our VISTA program across the country. Learn what you are hoping to get out of their position and how you can assist them in getting there, or at least getting access to resources to get them there. Staying on the example of knowing your members, introduce them to people who may match their skills and interests. Your VISTA project and organization likely has other staff, board members, people in the community, volunteers, or a variety of other people. Introduce the VISTA member to many of these people, especially if you know that a board member has experience in grant writing and the VISTA member needs help writing a grant. Or you may remember that a community member has a parent who builds and updates websites, and your VISTA member's future dream is to work on websites. Meeting people can be a huge step towards retention, as the VISTA member can feel better integrated with the area. These connections may speak to the VISTA member's personal goals and professional plans. Your goal is to try to make these connections and then let the VISTA member take it from there. Making these introductions can help VISTA members better succeed at getting the information and training they need to accomplish their VAD. And it can help them think about and fine-tune their plans after their VISTA service. There are so many ways to do this. And one way is organizing a small group in person or virtually. You don't want too many people, 1 for social distancing, and 2 because it may be too intimidating and less personal. Encourage about 4 to 6 people to talk about who they are, what they love to do, and how they're connected to the VISTA project. Honor and recognize that the VISTA member comes with their own knowledge and experiences, and they've also gained knowledge and experiences in their year of service that can be beneficial to you and your VISTA project. Ask more senior VISTA members to share their reflections and insights with new members. This could be a formal mentorship activity or an informal gathering where they connect with each other and talk about VISTA service. Connect your VISTA alumni with each other and to other alumni. They can visit the alumni section of VISTA campus to network with each other. Talk about how their service led them to where they are, and to put together in-person, written, audio, and video stories that can be used for your VISTA project to recruit new VISTA members.
Our third example has to do with expressing gratitude and thanking members. And so there will be a chat prompt asking how each of you thank your members for serving. And so while we turn to the example of thanking members, I'm really excited to hear your ideas about this in the chat. What specific activities do you do or want to do in terms of thanking members that can help them stay motivated and encouraged? What have you seen work, or what ideas do you have to show your members that you are appreciative of them and their service, and that you are thankful that they chose your VISTA project? And Eric, I may ask you to review a couple of their responses because for some reason my chat is not updating. I see recognition. Sure. Okay, they're coming through now. But please jump in if I miss anything. No, thank you. So recognition in a weekly staff meeting, food, planned activities, an invitation to speak to the board, which is wonderful, as well as recognition from City Council. Thank you cards. I know that here in Mississippi, written thank you notes make the world go round. Facilitating meetings and connections. I think chocolate, yes. These are all really, really thoughtful ways that you all can provide both sort of private one-on-one recognition as well as more public venues. So there are many wonderful ideas coming through, and I know that we'll be able to also talk more in the Q&A about the distinction between before COVID and now during. So thank you all so much. Your responses are great, and please keep posting so that you and others can make use of and adapt these new ideas for your VISTA project. These suggestions are a great supplement to a few ideas that we had to thank your members for serving. The words thank you are simple words, but can really make a significant difference. Use them intentionally and when you see that a VISTA needs some inspiration. It shows that you continually appreciate your members and their service, especially when you say thanks with sincerity and it sounds like it's coming from the heart. Skip the generic thank you and be specific about why you are thanking them and what they did well in terms of specific actions they took on a particular project. Thank them for doing hours and hours of research on that activity that led to the VISTA project making an informed decision. The more detailed you are in your thank you lets the VISTA member know that you are paying attention to what they are doing and that you notice their work. Thanking your members in public also lets the member know that you are committed to recognizing the work they are doing and that you are proud to have them on the team. They feel special and needed. There are many ways to say thank you. Some people really appreciate verbal mentions. Other folks find meaning in handwritten greeting cards or letters that you took the time to prepare. Others may prefer electronic mentions in mail or virtual cards. You could periodically put sticky notes on the desk or post positive accolades about your VISTA on social media. Do something heartfelt and remember that it does not have to cost much or anything. You can also show your appreciation for your VISTA member and your understanding of the challenges of serving as a VISTA, especially while serving remotely, by encouraging boundaries. We know that it can be so easy to work too much and blur the boundaries between personal and professional life when working remotely. You may have even experienced this in your own work. Encourage your members to set boundaries and take care of themselves by keeping regular service hours and then signing off. You can help with this by trying to avoid giving them tasks at 5 p.m. and avoiding, to the extent possible, communicating with them about work after business hours. Remind them that although they are in service to America, they also need to be of service to themselves and continually prioritize and practice self-care.
Let's look at this example. Explore ways to connect and appreciate your members virtually. If you have members serving remotely or teleservicing, making specific plans to keep them engaged shows them that you appreciate them more than just an email. On video or phone calls, publicly acknowledge your members by recognizing the work that they're doing and that you're proud to have them there. They feel special and needed. Add a unique touch by periodically sending electronic greeting cards, video messages, or other electronic media to motivate them in their service. There are many ways to say thank you, and you can find out what really makes a difference in the lives of your members. While we are talking about connecting virtually, use your own knowledge and insight from others on how you can coordinate virtual activities. Use technology available to you. Some of us use Microsoft Teams, Google Hangouts. If everyone has Google, you could use Zoom. Create virtual groups for people to share stories and communicate. They can be formal, they can be informal, There are ways that you can periodically structure conversations and activities using the live video on occasion, but not necessarily all the time, to integrate the VISTA with various groups in the VISTA project and organization. Create fun activities to do virtually with your VISTA members for education and engagement. It could be virtual trivia, a nature walk, other staff members after work just hanging out. You could create a short weekly activity based on people's recommendations, such as having everyone share baby pictures and telling a story of their childhood. Be fun and be creative.
So I will go ahead and tell a small part of my VISTA member service as it relates to retention, because for me it made a huge difference. I served as a VISTA member in 2006 in the lovely town of Bristol, Rhode Island. If any Rhode Islanders are out there, I love shout outs. Like many VISTA members, I had great times and I also had very challenging times. But a few things that made a huge difference in regards to my retention and what really kept me staying at my VISTA project for the year. One of them was being given flexibility within reason. One of my early tasks was to compile results from evaluations of a project to really understand what they meant and how to improve the project. No matter how my supervisor explained the process to tally the results, it just didn't make any sense to me. So I asked her, if I didn't really understand what she was doing, if I could create my own method to tally the results that would help the organization be sustainable. And she said, sure. So I turned all of the handwritten tally notes into an Excel spreadsheet to automatically create the formulas, which they could use year after year. And she didn't micromanage me, but she trusted that I would get the work done with periodic check-ins. So that was one thing that the flexibility was a huge difference to me. Secondly, music and dancing. Sounds a little odd, right? Well, in brief, I was in the same physical office space as my supervisor and our work study student. And at times I would randomly hear loud music being playing and they would just get up and start dancing and they said, Eric, come join us. And it seemed odd, but you realize that was part of their culture, just having fun, still getting the work done, but really enjoying life and having as much fun as you can. So I really appreciated the environment of having that available. Also, as many of you talked about in the chat, my supervisor intentionally invited me to lunches that she had with colleagues so I could meet them. And sometimes, even after work, she invited me to events with her family and friends so I could really get to know the area since I had relocated to a new community. It made me really feel part of something great, and it was truly wonderful feeling so valued that she invited me and included me in some of the things that she did. Also, we talk a lot about active listening, and my supervisor was a great active listener. She knew, like many of you, just because a VISTA member wants something or requests something doesn't mean that it's guaranteed to happen or that it will happen. But she listened to the concerns I raised to her about not being inspired at the beginning of my service, having challenges with the VAD, really just having a frustrating first 2 months. And she actively listened to the point that she was able to sit down with me in my second month of service to talk about what I thought my solutions were, what my recommendations were, and to figure out how we could work together so that I could still accomplish the activities in the VAD, but also find ways to actively incorporate some of my skills and interests so it was a win-win situation. And it was amazing. I also could just tell that my supervisor really wanted me to succeed, and she also wanted to see my success. Sometimes as a member, you can feel that based on verbal tone, body language, or even how much care they give you. That goes a long way towards retention. And then also, I was really allowed to be my true self. Now, granted, I am super corny. If you ever meet me in person or talk to me, you'll be like, I don't know who this guy is. And I know it and I love it. And of course, there's a time and a place to be respectful as well as funny and humorous. That's understandable. But she allowed me to be myself and occasionally tell corny jokes or make people laugh, just so that we could all be ourselves and truly appreciate the differences in the perspectives that we all bring. I will quickly say that some of my success was due to my being a positive person and advocating for myself, but a lot of it, honestly and truly, was due to my supervisor actively listening, recognizing when I was happy and when I was upset, and also understanding who I was as a person and what I brought to the VISTA program. So I'll say that whether you are a direct VISTA member supervisor or other VISTA project staff, if you truly get to know your VISTA member, like Laura and Jamie mentioned, Think about simple and easy things that you can do, whether it's virtually or in person, in addition to what's already been mentioned in the chat, that will have a significant lasting impact on the retention and the inspiration of your VISTA members.
We know that our by no means constitute an exhaustive list, but here are a few other ideas that we wanted to offer. If your organization has a newsletter, implement a VISTA Corner or some other name which enables you and the VISTA member to include an update and an article about what is going on. Encourage the member to lead a meeting in person or virtually. It gives them practice at public speaking and to hone the Zoom skills that we all are working on so intently now, and enables them to potentially train others on a particular topic. Go back to the member's application that you can access in eGrants and review the section on the member's skills and interests so you can figure out how to incorporate them. Learn about what makes the members feel at home and comfortable, especially if they relocated for service. If you are the direct supervisor, be intentional in your interactions with the VISTA member and think of yourself as a mentor and a coach. National service is a significant growth opportunity, as Eric just described so beautifully, and the VISTA will likely benefit from and need that support.
Here are a few more ideas. Work with your VISTA project and organization to see if there are additional benefits you can offer, such as housing stipend to go directly to the member's landlord, not to the member, a public transportation pass, or things like that. You know your area, so tell the VISTA member where they can find discounted and free things, along with where the cool spots are. Consider inviting them to an after-work event, or maybe even a weekend event. Utilize meaningful icebreakers that are fun, engaging, and informational to help you and the VISTA members learn more about each other. If you have multiple VISTA members, or if you want to make it a larger organizational thing in partnership with the community, have a monthly virtual poetry or open mic night or a similar activity. People seem to love food. I know I do. So put together an in-person potluck gathering or do something virtually that enables each person to share what they made, why they made it, and to get more information.
And I'm going to add a really quick story here, which actually answers one of the questions that came in about what to do about VISTAs who are looking for jobs. So I'll say recently a VISTA member emailed me to ask if he was saying he got a job offer, and he was wondering if he would have to forfeit his end of service benefits if he ended his VISTA service early due to finding a new job. So I told him yes, unfortunately that's the way the VISTA program works because we really want him to finish the year of service. But I could tell he was really disappointed because he found a great job that he really said was his dream job, and the job wanted him to start immediately. And of course, he wanted to take the opportunity, but he also really wanted to finish his VISTA service. So he asked me what I thought he should do. Of course, I didn't want to give him the official answer because it's his life and I want him to make the best decision for himself. So what I did, and this might be useful for many supervisors who have VISTAs that are talking about looking for jobs and unsure of what to do, I told him that I would recommend that before he makes his decision, he should get all the information necessary. And of course, he said, well, what do you mean? I have everything I need. I said, I love to explore all options. And one option that he may want to consider is if he knows the job wants him to start immediately and he still has 3 weeks left in his VISTA service, he may want to first reach out to his future employer and tell them that he's currently serving as an AmeriCorps VISTA member, which is a 1-year service term. Let him know that he's very close to finishing and he signed on for a 1-year commitment that he really wants to honor. Find out if the organization has any flexibility to let him start in 3 weeks when his VISTA term is over. Worst case scenario, they say no. Best case scenario, they say, sure, we can make that work. So he wrote back to me maybe a couple days later and said, guess what? Not only did the organization tell me that they were fine with me starting 3 weeks later, but they actually told me that they were much more appreciative that I didn't want to quit, that I wanted to honor my commitment as a VISTA, and they were impressed that I was so committed to serving. So sure, in this case, it was only 3 weeks between when the VISTA was supposed to start his job and when he was supposed to end service. But it makes a difference because the VISTA project did retain their member through the end of their service. And that may be something similar to you when you're talking with your VISTA members that are looking for outside jobs. Encourage them to explore all flexibility, even if they do get a job before their end of service. see what flexibility they have to try to still finish out the year of service. Because there might be some instances in which you can assist the member with retention and help your VISTA project retain the members as well.
With so many ideas and possibilities, remember this thought. Success isn't just about what you accomplish in your life. It's about what you inspire others to do. So, in addition to thinking about the success of your VISTA project in terms of what it plans to accomplish, focus your attention on the success of how well you inspire your VISTA members to do more and to be more.
In addition to the examples that we've used, as well as other examples, and you've shared many examples in the chat, here are some resources that we have to speak specifically to retention. And again, as we know, retention is not something you do, but it's a byproduct of other things that you do. But this also speaks to various actions that you can take that will help retain your members and leaders. Then, after this, we'll move to next steps, an evaluation of the session, and we'll answer as many questions we have in the time remaining. So briefly, when we talk about retention, the VISTA Campus website has quite a few resources on retention. Some of them are inside the VISTA Sponsor Handbook. Some of them are buried in recorded webinars. But you'll see the Helpful Links document, which there's a link posted in the chat, and we'll post it again, that has links to many, many resources that relate to training, orientation, inspiration, different things that you can do to inspire and motivate your VISTAs. Remember, with the hundreds of VISTA projects that we have, you likely don't have to create much from scratch. So many things have already been created, including the brilliant ideas many of you already have. So be sure to copy and paste some of those and think about how to make those ideas work for you. We want you to share, utilize, and adapt ideas that are on the VISTA campus and that you've also heard so that you can make the most use of all the examples you've seen today. And as we look at next steps, it can certainly be a challenge to think about how do you make a plan for retention, since retention is something that happens as a result of something else. Well, let's look at the first example of our next steps. As Laura and Jamie talked about earlier, actually talk with your members. And we say actually because I'm not just talking about a short conversation such as, hi, how are you, or what's going on, but a more in-depth conversation about how the year of service is going, what you can do for them, what they can do for you. And granted, you should try to do something with the information you learn, but at least having an open conversation can help the member feel that you care and show that you actually do care. Second, put yourself in the member's position and think, what would inspire you and engage you if you were in that position at that VISTA project? If you were a member, what types of activities, words, and things would really motivate you, and what would keep you wanting to stay with that VISTA project? It certainly helps to customize it to the VISTA member's needs, but you can get a great head start by thinking about it yourself. Third, consider making a schedule. You probably already have some type of electronic or hard copy calendar, so add things to it, such as reminders to have weekly check-in meetings with your members, or ideas maybe once a month, doing a virtual trivia night that was mentioned. Different things you can add to your calendar to remind yourself, as we said earlier, retention is active, and sometimes there are simple things you can do on a regular basis to really motivate your members to continue serving. And fourth, the other next step is to reflect on and actualize ideas that you have heard from our wonderful speakers and from other colleagues during this session. And it doesn't always have to be you. You probably have volunteers and other staff who may have ideas that you can say, here, I have this idea. What do you think about it? Utilize all of the resources available and determine if it's feasible to adapt and use those ideas, and then make it happen. In looking at the goals for today's session, we looked at how to understand basic elements of member retention. We talked about developing ways that you can inspire and motivate your members. We began to think about planning for retention and asking for your members' feedback on what really would make their year of service successful. And we also briefly gave you some ideas and resources and support as to where you can get additional information on retention. Before we get to the questions, I do strongly encourage and would love for you to fill out this evaluation. Many of our webinar topics this year have been based on feedback that sponsors and supervisors have recommended for future topics. So please, please, please take time to fill it out. We really do look at it and we value your input and feedback. Very quickly, you'll see on the next slide, the next webinar coming up is on reporting and data collection. Pretty self-explanatory, so I won't go into detail, but feel free to sign up using the link in the chat or on the VISTA campus. We look forward to seeing you on Tuesday, August 18th at 2 p.m. Eastern. With that, I'm going to get to a couple of questions. We don't have time for a lot, but I'll answer a couple. And the first question, I think I'll turn over to Jamie, and some of these have already been mentioned. But the question was, what retention strategies do you have during COVID when all or most staff, including the VISTAs, are working from home? For example, our VISTA came into the office for a 2-hour orientation and has since been working from home. There's minimal opportunities to build relationships with the team virtually. So Jamie, do you have ideas that you can think of that how to motivate people virtually in this environment?
Yeah, we still do a lot of the communication pieces, a lot of the recognition. We also do a VISTA of the quarter recognition piece that we're still doing throughout COVID. We also have our leaders helping us come up with project ideas for VISTAs to keep them engaged while they're at home. One thing that the first project does is we ask our members to complete a collaborative project, which is a project that they put thought into that breaks down a barrier to a problem in an underserved community that they're serving in. And so for a lot of our members, that's been conquering the digital divide that they see in their communities. So our members have stayed engaged, and we've really worked hard to ensure that there's not a lot of downtime. It is definitely one of the concerns that several of our host site supervisors have had, but we've been working to be proactive to meet that need so that there's never any I don't know what to have my VISTA be doing right now moments.
Great. And one other quick thing I want to add to that is there were some other really good responses in the chat about matching your VISTAs with a buddy in the workplace. And even if you're virtual, give your VISTA a virtual mentor. It could be another VISTA, it could be a staff member, but encourage them to get together once a week. There was talk about virtual tours, and if someone in the community literally wants to take a phone and show the VISTA virtually what the community looks like if the VISTA is not able to go outside, there's so many opportunities. And I'll turn it over to Laura to see if she has any other additional ideas about COVID activities that can keep VISTA members engaged who are serving remotely.
We have really ramped up our professional development opportunities. Like Jamie, I think we saw the downtime as an opportunity to learn and grow and build skills. And so we've kind of tapped our network of partners on campus at the University of Mississippi and also in the community to hold webinars on kind of strategies for doing social media in the time of COVID. We had a whole professional development on Canva, which is used to design really kind of graphically beautiful images that can be used on social media. And then we're having a grant writing workshop as many folks are redoubling their efforts to research on grant databases and pull together proposals.
Great, thank you very much. The other question I saw, which I can answer fairly quickly, was do we as the VISTA program or the VISTA training unit where I work share resources and ideas like this specific information on member retention with VISTA members? And I'll say it's an interesting answer. So we don't, for example, this webinar is ideally meant for VISTA supervisors, but we do from a VISTA training unit perspective do also value and understand the importance of retention. So one of the things that we do that hopefully helps towards retaining members is prior to COVID, we were doing in-person, in-service trainings where VISTA members could come together and actually get together for specific hands-on training that hopefully will be in the future, but we have to see how things go. But that was one way that VISTA members felt more engaged, connected, meeting VISTAs from all over the country, and learning more activities in relation to their VAD. Also, we do monthly webinars for members and leaders. So even though it's virtual, members can still participate from a distance. They can share their questions, their comments. We encourage VISTA members, supervisors, and leaders to respond and add information on the VISTA campus discussion forums. Again, it's not the same as in person, but at least in this virtual world right now, people can share ideas, share resources, tips, etc. So we do focus on much of that as much as we can from a VISTA headquarters perspective, while also knowing that you as the VISTA project supervisors and project staff really get to know the VISTAs on a more personal level and really understanding what they need and desire to succeed. So what I'm going to do now is we'll go to our last slide, but I do want to encourage you to continue for the next minute or two. If you have other ideas or suggestions, please include those in the chat, because again, a lot of you I know are copying and pasting ideas and taking notes of ideas. This webinar really is for you, and we want it to be the most successful for you. And speaking of this webinar, I really and truly want to give a virtual high five to Laura Martin and Jamie Ritz. I know all of you are applauding right now, even though we can't see it, but we'll pretend we can hear it. They were amazing in the resources and ideas they gave. They're always supportive of the VISTA program, so a huge, huge thank you for all the work that you continue to do for your VISTA members and leaders. It's truly been a pleasure. As well, I also want to thank Barbara Reynolds, my editor and support team, who's always around assisting to help. I want to thank Mike and Steve at LSI for their webinar assistance in managing the Zoom technology. And finally, last but certainly not least, we want to thank you for joining us on this webinar. As Laura and Jamie mentioned earlier, you're doing amazing and difficult work, but the value and the input of what you're providing makes a difference for the members and the community. So thank you, thank you, thank you. On behalf of the VISTA program, we appreciate everything you do and everything you represent. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on next month's webinar. This concludes today's session.